do want to make clear that you were talking about adult services, adult content, adult websites. Many of the age authentication requirements can apply to any website that might have children showing up at them, regardless of whether or not the content itself is things that we might object to children having access to. So, for example, things like social media. If we're concerned about children being addicted to social media, we would say then that we have to determine adults versus children and screen out the children or restrict their functionality. And that means all of the adults are being regulated as well. And it means that even if the social media itself had no content that it was harmful to children, we would still require that process to take place.
Well, I always said there are smart judges in courts out there that know how that we have a constitution here in the U.S. Because there are laws out there that are violating the Constitution, including AV laws, whether it's age verification, age assurance on there. These are censorship laws, and it violates the Constitution. Now, for those of you saying, well, pornography is obscene and it's not only pornography. It's what they deem obscene. That's the word you have to look at. You have to look at adult content and what they deem obscene. Because you have to the point, and I'll tell you this. There are groups who attacked Cosmopolitan magazine, a woman's magazine. A magazine that was talked on sitcom television like All in the Family. Edith Bunker was one who read Cosmo back in the day, and they deemed that pornography. Why? Because it talks about, there's sex talk. Yeah, sure there is. There's problems, relationships, the women's problems. It's a magazine where it talks about issues of the day of women. They don't want that. They don't want that on the front counters of Walmart or the newsstands on there. They want that gone. They want it all away because they said it's all pornography. But this episode, we are going to be focusing on Georgia. And I'm not talking about Georgia in Europe. I'm talking about Georgia in the United States. Even though we've had a SCOTUS ruling in favor for this AV law, but it seems like another court has said,
hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
Something just not right here. But what's right here is, let's take this moment to say, drop a comment, hit the like, share this video, and hopefully today's the day I've earned your subscription. We really do appreciate those of you who have been with us. I know this is the slow time of the year. You notice some of our videos have been, we haven't had a full run of them, but it'll give you a chance to soak in some of the stuff that we're putting in there. As soon as we get out of the summer and back into a regular stream on there, and plus also we are working on live streaming very soon, hopefully for the fall. So we're working on that as well. So if you see us testing the situation, stop on by, drop in the chat and say hello onto there. So, out of adult video news, court blocks Georgia's AV rules for social media websites. A day before Pornhub.com went dark in the U.S. state of Georgia, actually it's a VPN, ladies and gentlemen, a federal district court in Atlanta ruled that the provisions in a sweeping age verification law that specifically pertain to social media networks would temporarily blocked and on so-called free speech grounds. See, this is the thing. I didn't hear what happened at SCOTUS to this fight, and I think there was some things probably most likely missing to this point, and I think SCOTUS would have ruled differently if some things weren't on there. And this particular court has seen that, and this is probably what's being thrown out there. Last week, senior U.S. Judge Amy Tottenberg of the Northern District of Georgia ruled in favor of technology industry trade group NetChoice. Bravo to NetChoice, they're one of the big fighters out there. Tottenberg agrees with the trade group, which features members like Meta platforms, Google, Amazon, and Reddit. She found that the law will likely violate free speech protections for social media users, including youth. The state law in question is Senate Bill SB 351, or Protecting Georgia's Children on the Social Media Act of 2024, is a sweeping child internet safety measure that requires age verification for pornographic websites and mainstream social media networks that might not contain adult content. Exactly to the point. This law is not a pornography law. This is a law to censor the internet. Even though SB 351 regulates social media and adult entertainment platforms, NetChoice only sued to protect its members. NetChoice proved successful. The court does not doubt that the dangers posed by young people's overwhelming exposure to social media. Tottenberg wrote in her order, but in its efforts to aid parents, the Act's solutions create serious obstacles for all Georgians, including teenagers, to engage in protected speech activities and would highly likely be unconstitutional. NetChoice Director of Litigation Chris Marchese praised the ruling, saying free expression doesn't end where the government anxiety begins. Parents, not politicians, should guide their children's lives online and offline, and no one should have to hand over a government ID to speak in digital spaces. Despite the praising of the ruling, Marchese demonstrates that the adult entertainment platforms, which share the same digital spaces as the association's mainstream members, are left out in the cold. And it's noted by proponents of age verification laws for all internet platforms, regardless of whether they are mainstream or adult industry oriented. Republican State Senator Jason Anavarti, the lead legislator sponsoring behind SB 351, said that he remains confident that the recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling dealing with age verification for pornography websites will lead the Judge Tottenberg to rule in favor of the state government and Republican-backed child safety proponents. Requiring proof of age is an ordinary and appropriate means of enforcing an age-based limit on obscenity to minors, Avatari said, reporting by the Georgian Recorder. He said, referring on how conservative majority of the High Court ruled in favor of the state Texas in litigation about state age verification laws and its constitutionality. The High Court ruled 6-3 that age verification laws regarding pornography through age verification legislation were constitutional via the intermediate scrutiny. Remember, intermediate scrutiny. Remember, set that in. Senator Avarti's add-on, based on that ruling, the Supreme Court Judge Tottenberg should be left with no choice to allow SB 351 to go into effect. But here's the point. Here's the point to the situation. As this law puts to this point, which that's not the Texas law is much different than this particular law, is that the Georgia law is going after social media as well. They're going after Instagram. They're going after Facebook. They're going after YouTube. They're going after Rumble. They're going after all these sites. Why? Because they want to censor the internet. This is both sides of the aisle, whether it's Democratic or Republican. There are those on both sides of the aisle that are radicals that believe that that there should be some safeguards to that point. No, the safeguards are already there. Now, recently, the Ivo, the corporate company for Pornhub, has put to this point out that they consider that the way to do this, the way to safeguard kids from the internet is to basically put to this point, and I'm looking into this, is when you buy the hardware, when you buy that computer, when you buy that cell phone, that smartphone, when you buy that tablet, that laptop, what is the first thing that happens when you turn it on? You acknowledge yourself. You sign in as yourself. You put your name into the system on there. You identify where you live. To the point on there. What language you speak on to that point. And the thing is, that might be a better way of to verify someone when they get a digital device, instead of going to the website itself. That basically, if you're an adult, you're buying a computer, you're going to go through all the specifications. Take that extra step for the kids, that you're able to block the stuff. And the thing about it is, the blocks are all there. Some of them are very easy. There are blurs actually on Google. If you're typing in something, obviously it's easy to remove, but you lock it in there for your children. There's software programs that doesn't allow you to access certain websites. It's out there. Your antivirus programs have ways of locking out certain websites. Doesn't allow you to go to that website. This is something that's been around for a long time. So why the push to verify yourself on the website itself? It's outing you. This is what it is, because they're going to be using third-party companies. They're outing you. This has happened before. Okay? Not as big as this, but it happened before. A court ruled against this situation. Circa back about late 80s, 90s, Time Warner Cable TV, which was Manhattan Cable TV, which is now Spectrum. Basically, there was a lawsuit. And I've played the video here before. It's the former porn actress and cable TV star Robin Bird, who was one of the stars in Debbie Does Dallas. She had her own TV show right here in New York City for many years, and it's still, I believe, it's still repeating on, which is now called MNN, Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Basically, she still has that show going on, and herself and several others, including the Gay Cable Network, sued Time Warner to the point because they were basically being scrambled. Now, understand, these channels that they were on, which we call public access and lease access, these are channels open to the public. In other words, just like you do on YouTube, you can have your own show. Before that, we used to be able to do that on broadcast television, on cable TV. And it was called public access. Still exists today, somewhat. It depends on where you are in the country. In New York, it still exists. It's called MNN. And basically, they were scrambling adult content on there. And the thing is, the adult content, versus today, the way people, schedule their stuff. Back then, most of the stuff would air past 10 p.m. On the cable channel itself. That's where it was allowed at. Most of the times, it's after 11 or into midnight. Of course, having the show Midnight Blue. And what happened was, since they were being scrambled, the cable company, Time Warner, said, if you want these channels unscrambled, you need to fill out a card. A card saying, I want this, I like to watch Robin Bird, Midnight Blue, to that situation, and please unscramble the channel. That's outing people to the situation. And remember, back then, and this is the reason why I mentioned the Gay Cable Network, we were at the height of the AIDS crisis at that time period, number one, to that situation. And one resource that the Gay Cable Network had was basically they offered health resources as far as some of their programming to that point. It was being scrambled to that. Think about that. Yes, there was some adult stuff that, gay cable networks, gay cable network, similar to the other adult sites on there, which is, to that point. And the thing is, and here is the stupidity to this point. One of the reasons why Time Warner wanted to do this is because they were losing money, obviously. And, and like I said, the other half of it is that we're making lists that basically you shouldn't have. Access people that basically watch adult content on there. Because what are they going to do with those lists? They're going to sell it out or use it for some nefarious things. The other half is they were losing money. Now, back then, you had situations where you had pay-per-view. You still have pay-per-view today somewhat on there. The pay-per-view back then, for those of you who are too young to know or was not born in that era, how easy was it to get pornography on your TV screen off cable TV? All it had to do was pick up that phone and dial the number. Didn't ask for ID. Didn't ask who you were. Long as you picked up the phone in the home of where that cable was licensed to, in other words, it had to be the phone number that was on the account, you instantly got access to it. In other words, you dialed the number and they said, please tune in to channel 485 for your pornography movie. That's all it did. That's all it was. And, and the thing is that when you had people tune in to stuff like Robin Bird, Midnight Blue, Interludes After Midnight, and many other shows that were on there, Ugly George. God, I can't believe I'm mentioning Ugly George. We got to talk about that one day. From the Polish Penthouse, Ugly George. Wow. You had these shows out there that were doing better than paying for Playboy or porn movies on that because it was free. It was free. Okay. The point that there was penetration, stuff like that, you didn't really get it. But there was a lot of TNA and, close shots and stuff like that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can call it pornography. But that's as far as they went. They knew where they drew the line, especially with the FCC at that point. Now these days, okay, yes, we can get it on the internet very easily. Very easily type in Pornhub and all that to that point. But the thing about it is, who's watching Pornhub? Who's watching X videos? Stuff like that. They want to know who's doing that. The kids are not looking to go over to Pornhub and all that. They get on there from Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, to that point. Because they have their issues there. As again, red porn is a red herring. The other half is that these laws that they're trying to push is basically to the point that they don't like what some people are saying on the internet. Plain and simple. They don't like when I talk about things. They don't like what Tim Pool says, Steven Crowder, Nerdrotic, Midnight's Edge, Lorena Creole. They don't like what we talk about. Like just this past week, the Superman debacle situations. They don't like what the people, all these people talking about how bad the Superman movie is, because it is. Truth, justice, and the American way. How do you take that motto out of Superman? Because that's what it was at that. And should be, still is. Why? Because he was raised in America. He was raised in Kansas. And I love how they're trying to throw the immigration thing in there. He didn't immigrate it. He crash landed on this planet. He didn't have a choice. He's a survivor. Leave it alone. But this is what happens. This is the whole insanity. We can go rings around the whole situation to that point. But what I want you not to leave alone is to drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit the like, share, and make sure hit that subscribe button. It's right there. We do appreciate that. All the thousands and thousands of videos you clicked on ours, and we really do appreciate that. So until next time, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye now.